Hello, everybody, and we are back for another episode of Chris Buckle's Album Club. Today, as usual, we will be doing two albums randomly picked from our list of anonymous submissions, and then we'll listen to them, and we'll give thoughts on them, and of course, argue maybe a bit, and eventually, we'll say which one of the two albums we like better. We'll take a vote, and we'll see who wins. Of course, it's not that deep, but still, we will see who wins, and we will also reveal who picked what. So today with me, as usual, I have Ben.
If you believe they put a man on the moon, man on the moon.
Matthew.
My cardigan is very comfortable.
And Van.
From the time you're listening to this, the snow has melted.
Oof. Big oof. Well, y'all ready to hear what today's albums are?
Yeah.
Okay, well, Van at least sounds maybe mildly enthused. Well, I think there's someone else who would be more enthused about this pairing once I name off what the albums are. Today's albums are Madvillainy by Madvillain, which is MF Doom and Madlib, also I've heard, and Hot Fuss by The Killers.
Ooh!
So, kind of a strange pairing. Very 2000Z, I guess.
Sorry.
So we're going to initial questions, and we're starting with you, Ben. What are your thoughts on this pairing?
I don't think I would listen to either of these albums all the way through, but I'm familiar with songs from each. Of course, most famously being Best of Bets. I'd try that. One of the greatest achievements of White.
No. Okay, I'll let you cook. Sorry.
Yes. So I think we're definitely going back to the 2000s for this pairing. To be kind of, I don't know, hip. What would we call the Killers, like hip story rock? Kind of like the White Stripes, maybe, as opposed to like the Nickelback type rock. So that I think this album is interesting to think about. A topic I'm very interested in, which is the kind of like loss of mainstream rock. I mean, there have been more rock elements in the 2020s that have reappeared, like in Sour, for instance, or in Sabrina Carpenter, some of her songs, a little bit. But they're still pop stars first and foremost, and not rock artists. But it feels a bit kind of like more punk influences, which I am glad about, and hopefully we can talk about more on this channel at some point. But I do think thinking about this kind of divide between, the 90s. This is why, even though I like 60s and 70s rock better than 90s rock, I find 90s rock almost more interesting to think about. Because it's like, this is all tied up in then this later disintegration of rock. Which is not to say that the 90s weren't a great decade for rock. They were actually a stronger decade for rock than the 80s. For sure. In fact, there was like, there's always been these kind of phases in rock, such that people be like, "Oh, rock and roll is dying. It's time to sing about rock and roll dying." I like it all the time in rock and roll. I don't know. That's always been a theme. I think it was more of a serious threat in the 80s today over time, but there was obviously a lot of big hell metal acts. There was kind of a sense of exhaustion. But thanks to artists like R.E.M., the Pixies, and then of course grunge, it got back up on its feet in the 90s. But then there was kind of a disintegration in the 90s of rock. I think we have to forget about this. I mean, yes, there was more pop. Right? Pop kind of disintegrated a little bit, other than R&B. Alongside rock into then the new form of rock. Grunge and things that succeeded it. But trying to think about, there was I mean, we're talking to kind of happy pop and like the Latin dance craze with Total Request Live and like the boy bands associated with it, etc. Obviously, those won't walk though. But trying to think about, there was also a disintegration of rock, but it wasn't a disintegration of rock into like not being popular. It was a disintegration in the sense of you had lots of different elements. Just popular music in the late 90s in general was kind of disintegrated. Not in the sense of it wasn't important. It was very important. It's the 2000s when it gets like into chaos. That's it. But disintegrated in the sense of not integrated, as opposed to like is gone. That it was disintegrated into, we had the ska revival, it was the swing revival of this and that revivals in pop, which were of course pop mostly. I mean, the ska revival is related to rock though. I would say pretty significantly. It's also related to then the pop punk, right? Pop punk becomes kind of the defining field. So if we're thinking about the different elements of 2000s rock, right? 2000s rock is both popular and disintegrated in the sense of not integrated. And I think the Killers along the White Stripes represents like one wing of that. Nickelback, we talked about Creed previously. Groups that will try to carry on grunge in some way represent but in a very popular form. Continue kind of like a second wing of that. And then a third wing being like pop, punk, and emo. When I think about the relationship between these three elements, I think it's quite interesting and why they couldn't not only could they not reintegrate, but why this polarization was not really sustainable. That's why is Paramore the only rock band anymore? Because that's not literally true. Why is Paramore like the only really successful one? I mean, I guess we could say Foo Fighters, carrying on. But like, why is this disintegration? One happened. I sometimes say I attribute it to Kurt Cobain's death, actually. But then once it gets sorted into these categories, like these categories do reappear out of the chaos. But then the relationship between them is such that rock kind of just disintegrates in the more like colloquial sense of it ceases to be very important on the charts at all. I mean, that's still true. Rock dies. Of course, it's not actually dead. There's still lots of good rock being put out. But, I mean, even like, what was winning Best Rock Song at the Grammys? Love Night. It was the Beatles! Now, I love the Beatles, so I'm not mad about that. I mean, let's say Vincent, who's coming to Charlottesville, actually. Does, Foo Fighters continue to exist, etc. Even if they've been on hiatus for personal reasons, recently. But it's not integrated. So when I'm thinking about the relationship in any sense, it's not very popular. It's still popular, but it's not like on the pop charts. It's not about Billboard Hot 100 anymore. Try to think about this period when it was on it, but there were kind of like mobile streams, and of course there's always been mobile subgenres. The relationship between the subgenres was such that it was not really sustainable. I think The Killers is a good album to like approach that question. And of course, MF Doom also sounds good, though I will let Matthew talk about him more, because Matthew's more of an expert. But those are my thoughts on The Killers, more than Madvillainy.
Matthew?
I have, of course, very well depth of the works of one of my favorite rappers of all time, MF Doom. I have, of course, listened to Madvillainy before. I think that it is his crowning achievement that he did with Madlib. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. As for Hot Fuzz by The Killers, I have, of course, heard of this album before. I have quite enjoyed that album, especially one song in particular that I know a certain person loves, and what I consider probably the greatest contribution that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has ever produced. So I am looking forward to both um, albums.
Fan.
Well, I've never heard of MF Doom. Well, no, I've never heard MF Doom. I've obviously heard of MF Doom. Uh, and I've never heard of Madvillain. Um, but looking at these genres, it looks fun. Alternative, jazz, experimental, psychedelic, abstract, hip hop, and rap. Sounds pretty cool. I've obviously been on record. I'm not a very big rap fan. Um, but this definitely looks cool. I'm interested in hearing it. And as I know, one person in this chat knows that I fucking hate Mr. Brightside. It is like it is like maybe my least favorite song ever. Um, it's not that bad, but man, I am not a fan at all. Um, I never was a big fan of it, and then it started getting really popular. And then I started playing it in cover bands, and I associate it with like 12:55 on a Wednesday night playing to drunk people when I have to drive 2 hours home. Still, that's what I associate Mr. Brightside with. Not getting home until 4 in the morning, and I just do not fucking like that song. Somebody told me I remember liking when I heard it like 20 years ago. I mean, I'm not sure if I'll like it now, but yeah, not looking forward to hearing that album. Thumbs up.
Oh, I. As for me, don't know how to follow really any of that up, but I've not listened to either of these albums. I'm kind of vaguely familiar with a couple of the songs off the Killer's album, albeit decently vaguely. Mr. White's side a bit more than some other ones, but still. Don't really have very strong thoughts. It's been a hot sec since I heard any of it. MF Doom, I have heard a little bit of MF Doom. I don't think it's anything off this album, and I'm not really familiar with Madlib, I don't think at all. So, just not too much to say, going into that one. But I know it's very popular, very highly regarded, so I have hopes, probably greater hopes for Madvillainy than I do Hot Fuss, but we'll see. It's about it. Not really all that much to say, but I'm excited to go listen to these and be back with our thoughts on them. Now we're going to go do exactly that. We're going to go listen to these albums, and we'll be right back with our thoughts. Alright, we are back, and we have listened to the albums now. The first album was Madvillainy by Madvillain. Sometimes I forget which order the albums were in, but in this case it was Madvillainy, and we're going to people's thoughts on the album, and we are starting with, as usual, you, Ben. What were your thoughts on this album?
I'm actually going to let Matthew go first.
Okay, then we will skip to Matthew.
This is one of the greatest rap albums of the time. I would say maybe it's top five. You can argue maybe top three. Um, this is just an incredible album. It is MF Doom's um, magnum opus. Uh, he had, of course, made other work like Operation Doomsday, um, but this was like this is his magnum opus that he made with Mad Lib. Um, and this was like one of the best years in hip hop for an artist. Um, not as good, probably not as big as a certain person from Compton, California, but with him doing uh, Madvillainy and then his other album, Food, is just incredible. Like the thing about this album, it is about 46 minutes long. but it's like smooth as butter, as he would say. It just goes by really quickly. The sampling is incredible. You know how MF Doom is, rapping is just smooth. Like it just sounds um like the like one of the greatest things you've ever heard, while almost saying like nothing. I think my favorite track of this album is, of course, all caps. I love the beginning of it and the um, and he's just like so like how he raps is incredible. Um, you know, it's kind of funny like during the making of Madvillainy. Basically him and Madlib didn't really talk much. They basically just let music um, connect between each other. But what they made is like honestly one of the greatest rap albums of all time. I think it's up there with To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar, Illmatic by Nas, um, Enter the Wu Tang by the Wu Tang Clan. Um, you could maybe put like an Outkast album if you want to. You could probably put a Jay-Z album up there, like The Blueprint, or if you want a certain person's albums, you can do that. But this is just like an all-time great album, and I would add, it's not only just one of the greatest rap albums of all time. I think it's just one of the greatest albums, like regardless of genre.
Okay, Ben, we're back to you.
Yes. I agree with most of what Matthew said. I would like to say that I really like the use of the voiceovers in it. Now I know that on MF Doom's previous album, the voiceovers will just samples of the old Fantastic Four cartoon. Um, but in this case, it's my understanding that they sampled from kind of movies, or like almost like PSA like movies. They do some really funny things with that, like Mela, Juana, Mela, Juana. Or like they have the PSA announce the announcer say that like you need to smoke marijuana, or like a random stuff like that. Um, I found that pretty funny. In the song America's Most Blunted, that was pretty silly. I enjoyed that. I mean, as Matthew said, he liked all caps. I also liked all caps. I also liked the song Rhinestone Cowboy, even though it says nothing like the original Rhinestone Cowboy. Um, yeah, I really like that too. And not the opening track, but the opening rap track, accordion stood out. But I thought this album as a whole, especially the way that the announcer moved from one track to the next, um, made this album work really well. So I really like this album. But otherwise, my thoughts were basically said by Matthew.
All right, Van.
Alright, so, as you guys probably know, I've never really been a rap guy. It's just not the music I like. However, this I absolutely loved. This was great music. Um, this was awesome. Um, just from right away, you just knew this was a cool album. Um, I loved Doom's rapping style. He was very laid back. Um, and I liked that sound a lot. The laid back kind of vibe. One thing that I really noticed was this is kind of like we did the Public Enemy record a while ago, and the three of them did one before I joined as well. Um, this is like an evolution of Public Enemy in some ways, like with the excessive use of sampling, but instead of being very in your face, aggressive, and kind of clunky, like Public Enemy was. This is really smooth. It's really chill. It's really clean. And excessive, not in a bad way. Um, they use the excess of samples extremely well. Really artistic use of it, very musical use of sampling. Um, they used the sample of Notice by Bill Evans. Well, technically Miles Davis wrote it, but I mean, I can I can tell Bill Evans playing anywhere. That was cool. I love that tune. That's unrelated. I just love that. I love the kind of cutaways. It was like using villain type things from like old TV shows and old movie trailers. Um, just the one thing that I noticed was this. They did a lot of little things really well. The way they'll just like reverse the beat for like a second or two, or the way they'll just throw in a random sample for like 10 seconds and make that the entire focus. There's nothing else going on. It's just, hey, listen to this one thing for 10 seconds. This is cool. Look at what we found. We like this a lot, and you should like it too. Just really cool little things, They were really good at really putting the focus where they wanted it to be. Like if they wanted you to focus on the beat, they'd shift something around very quickly. This is an album that takes multiple listenings to really kind of get down. I've only listened to it once, but I can tell that this is an album that's going to need multiple listens just because there's so much always going on. There's so many different things that they want to draw your attention to. Definitely getting a lot of value out of this. What they're doing. They mentioned Sun Ra. It wouldn't surprise me if they sampled him too. Wouldn't surprise me at all. One other thing is they transition between songs extremely well. Just they were talking about Matthew and Ben talked about favorite tracks. I couldn't really pick a favorite track because to me it all just kind of felt like one. There was no moment that didn't feel like it was a part of a greater thing. The way that they just kind of cut back and forth between different things, it all felt like almost like a collage of just different things as opposed to like multiple different songs. Each song had multiple different moments. Um, this was just really cool at the end of the day. I enjoyed this a lot. And I guess that's it. I had a great time listening to it.
Yeah, but
As for my thoughts on the album, I did actually quite like this. I guess I wasn't too surprised. Only I did have pretty, I think, high expectations for it, given, it does have a reputation. Also, given we have had generally pretty good success with hip-hop albums here on the Album Club before in the past. Matthew, for instance, here, just a little bit ago, compared this to Illmatic, that was an album I liked when we did that on the Album Club. So he puts this in a similar category. I agree with that, I think. I did quite like this. I really did like the kind of the comic book style, the announcer, the kind of pulpy feel to it. I also really, really quite liked it's the kind of stuff rapping. Fan talked about that at great length. I don't exactly feel we need to go into quite maybe as deeply as he did, but he's right about that. He's right about the production. As for songs, the two songs I think I liked the best, but this is just kind of a knee-jerk reaction, I guess, or Strange Ways and Corals. Don't know why. Don't really ask me why. Those are the ones I feel like I like the sampling and stuff the best on, but that's not really by much. I wouldn't say they like stand out above us by that much, just by like a little. Also, as far as this album's concerned, and I just want to say, I listened to this album 3 times here in between when we filmed the opening of this video and now. I usually do 2. Occasionally I've done just 1. Fan, for instance, I know said he listened to it just once, but was taking notes. I listened to this 3 times. And I will say it didn't really get old in that time. But also I feel like there's still a lot I have left kind of to digest from this. Like, there was still, I think, stuff to really find in here even after 3 listens. That's a good thing, I'd say. Because it, I think, gives it a replayability, well, I don't know, just even the fact that I listened to it 3 times in very high density time period. 3 times here in just the last few days. And never got sick, really, of it, is, I think, certainly a point in its favor. I would say, I think, pretty easily re-listenable album. One that doesn't tire itself out that quickly, despite the fact that it kind of has a gimmick, right? Like, MF Doom, I guess it just in general, has a gimmick, kind of being kind of like this supervillain. And this one, in particular, it's Madvillainy, it's got all this stuff about the illest villains and whatever. But it really did not tire itself out, despite being built around that. Like, it could have been a one-trick pony, but it really, I don't think, was. I think that really does stand as a testament to the quality of the production of rapping on it. As for the bad, there wasn't really too much downsides to this album. I will say, the one song about marijuana and like how it's maybe actually good for you, and like just kind of propping up like all of what they see as the pros of marijuana, I thought was a bit preachy. Not necessarily preachy in the way that people usually preach about marijuana, of course, but I did find that song a bit preachy, and a bit preachy in kind of this weird reverse way. But I just found it kind of like, maybe at this time when this was out, like, 2004, that was subversive. But like now, like, everyone in Villanova does it. Like, I live in a place where we have like 4 dispensaries on every like intersection, and just people constantly talk about how marijuana's like the greatest thing in the world. It's just kind of tired, I guess, for me, especially considering that I don't do marijuana. But even regardless of that, it's just those. You could go up and just talk to a random person in real life, and they'll still talking. It sounds like this song, and I'll say having an announcer talk about marijuana just did sound kind of like a gimmick. So that was like the one part of the album I thought didn't really have great listenability, but that was a pretty small part of the album. Didn't last too long, but it was a little bit just finicky, I thought. The rest of the album, all the stuff with the, super villains, the illest villains, Rhinestone Cowboy, that was one I liked too. All that stuff, I do think, though, worked quite well, and in general, that was a song with very good re-listenability. It's kind of dense, I guess, in a way. Like, we said this about Like Clockwork by Queens of the Stone Age. That was quite a while back we did that album. And that was something I said. I listened to that album multiple times and still didn't fully digest it. And I think that maybe is the hallmark of... they're easily digestible albums. They're great albums too. But, you don't want your album to tire you out too quickly. And this... after just a couple of listens. And this didn't do it. It's only, I've only listened to it, as I said, 3 times. There are people out there, like Matthew, I'm sure, has listened to it a lot more times than I have. A lot more times than that. Definitely he has. And, it's an album that has legs, that can run the distance, generally. So, that's good. Alright, does anyone else have anything they would like to say?
Yeah. I would like to say that the marijuana ad I found very funny. I don't use marijuana. No, I don't. I can't smoke things, for one. Physically. But it was very funny. It was a very funny ad. I found it I don't know. I found it quite enjoyable. In some ways, it was one of the things that stood out the most to me in this album, was because of how silly it was. And like you said, Quest, I think thinking about the context is important, which is the idea of here's a PSA for marijuana. 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 It is pretty funny. Having the PSA announcer say it. The PSA is so, I don't know, because there were movies like Reefer Madness, which was in the 30s, but various PSAs going into. I can't remember seeing them in comic books in say the 2000s, but it would be like,
those were the comic
"Go
books.
lose off, you smoke weed."
Those
and it's
were
a guy
that's
that
kind of
smokes weed.
that's kind of the point. Those are the comic book heroes, and these are the comic book villains.
Well, those weren't even heroes. They were ads with a Skater boy. I can see him.
Yeah, but that's sort of the point.
He has
The good guys in comic books are the anti-drug ones, and then these are supposed to be the villains, kind of the subversive ones.
That's true. I don't know. It was just goofy, as fan said in the text channel. It was goofy. I found that fun. I don't know what else to say. I do think, especially based off of fans' discussion of the sampling, I didn't really catch that much while I was listening to it the first time. And I was not able to re-listen to it like you will 3 times, Chris. So I should probably go look into that in more detail. Because I am a well-known fan of how Public Enemy approaches sampling. So looking more into the sampling is something I should do. Mostly I was just like, oh, this is a very fun, goofy album about being a comic book villain. And that goes very hard, and it sounds good, and MF Doom is a great rapper. That's basically how I approach it, but we'll see.
Once again, I'm just going to kind of reiterate and also maybe clarify my position on marijuana. It was kind of the stuff about it in the album, not generally the substance, but it was kind of funny the first time because it was meant to be subversive. It was meant to be instead of the superheroes doing the anti-drug PSAs, like you'd see in the 70s, it was the supervillains doing the pro-drug PSA, and that was it was kind of funny, but it was kind of a one-trick pony. I just didn't think, it's not that I found the song bad particularly, it just didn't have the same re-listenability as the rest of the album, in my opinion. It's not necessarily that I'm against it on principle. It's not as subversive anymore as it was at the time. But even at the time, I feel like it was just a bit of a more gimmicky than the rest of it, and just ran its course a little bit quicker than the other songs. Alright, well, if nobody has anything else they want to say, we will move on to the next album. The next album is Hot Fuss by The Killers. And as usual, we're going back to the top and starting with you, Ben.
I should be pretty sympathetic to this album. I really should be. In terms of what I talked about in the first part of the episode, there was a split in rock in the 2000s. Well, we had this kind of, I don't know how to call it. I've seen people describe as hipster. I don't really like that, but people like the White Stripes, a band that I have defended on this channel from Scandal, and also the Killers. Who else am I thinking of? Now I'm breaking out the other band I was thinking of. Let me look it up briefly. Oh yeah, like the Shrubs. I'm pretty sympathetic to these artists. Like that. At least to some extent. I don't listen to it a lot, but I'm pretty sympathetic to them. As opposed to the other side of rock, right? Which is people call butt rock. Also not really a term I like. But something like Nickelback. Yeah, and then somebody in the text says Modest Mouse. That's a good example, right? A good indie rock example. I don't know Good News as much, but Modest Mouse sounds great. It's just kind of independent rock scene. And you end up having this kind of division between that and commercial, in quotation marks, rock. Both of them ended up both of them end up leading to this kind of modern globe, unfortunately. Though there has been kind of a resurgence of rock sounds and at least pop music that I'm happy about. Like, I've been hearing there's more guitar and say Olivia Rodrigo or in Sabrina Carpenter's album. Juno is a good example of this, for instance. Ultimately, rock kind of descends into glop of, whatever will happen to Moon 5 or Imagine Dragons, etc. I feel like both sides end up like feeding into that, but I am definitely a lot more sympathetic to the indie rock side. And as I said, there's also an emo side that leads into Paramore, which is like the last person standing in some sense. I guess we could also argue Foo Fighters. But we've spent a lot of time on Paramore on this channel, so there's no need to get into that right now. So I should be quite sympathetic to this Killers album. A couple songs on this album are very well known to me, which are, of course, Mr. Brightside and Somebody Told Me. Those songs still stand up. I'll agree with those songs still stand up. But honestly, I wasn't that impressed by this album, no. For an album that is so hyped up that GigWise, which is a British online news site, won the poll as the best debut album ever. That has been on like the best 17th best album from 1986 to 2010 according to Q. 9th greatest debut album according to Albedo's poll and Rolling Stone. This album was just mad. Like, this album is not that exciting. I do kind of like the sonic palette on it. It's this kind of indie rock sonic palette of the other bands I mentioned, especially sounds like The Strokes. Excuse me. But I don't know. Like, I felt like this album was not very exciting. And oftentimes when I would start to feel more sympathetic towards it, it would do something that undermined it, which was unfortunate. Like, for instance, I remember sometime I was thinking, oh, this is getting very good. This is getting pretty good. I don't know what track this was on. And then he said, quote, "You have a real short skirt that I want to look up." I was like, okay. So, I don't know. I kind of didn't like... I mean, the song I liked the least was actually the alternative track, which I know we technically were supposed to listen to. Glamorous Indie Rock and Roll. I didn't like that at all. A lot of the songs on here, I was like, these are fine. They're listenable. I do kind of like the sonic palette at times. But it was way too forgettable for what it's supposed to be like this massive, like, amazing album. Frankly, even somebody told me Mr. Brightside are kind of like songs in some weird ways. They're iconic. They're absolutely iconic. They're stuck in my head forever. They've been stuck in my head since I was a kid. I don't know. Like, it was just like, this is okay. I mean, even the song... I mean, the opening track, Jenny Was a Friend of Mine, I thought was kind of interesting. Well, it has to do with a crime. I thought that was kind of interesting. There were other songs that deal with this, like Midnight Show seems to also deal with the same crime. And I found that those two elements, I thought that was interesting. But Glamorous Indie Rock and Roll was one, not on the American version of the album, and two, was absolutely terrible. What the hell? Anyway, because I'm kind of rambling, I'm going to hand it off to Matthew, but I would just say this album was a disappointment.
Alright, so I have listened to this album a second time. I've listened to this album previously, and you know, before I say my full thoughts, I would like to. Does anyone know what a compliment sandwich is? Anyone know what a compliment sandwich is?
Yeah, it's when you say something nice, something bad, and then something nice.
All right, so the nice part about this album is that it has Mr. Brightside and Somebody Told Me. And I know, I think my experience with Mr. Brightside, I basically got into that song very late. Like, I didn't remember when it came out. I didn't remember it basically have its hype. But I've listened to it. It still rocks. It's a really good song. It makes sense. Why white people like it that much and dance to it, I don't know. But I'm fascinated by it. And like, it's kind of one of the funny jokes around me is that like, as someone who is not white, I like experiencing different cultural reactions to certain things, and one of those is Mr. Brightside, um, and I think it's just like a great song, and it's the highlight of the album. It gets you into the high, and now to the negative part about the this compliment sandwich. The rest of the album is boring as sin. Like literally after Mr. Somebody Told Me, it literally you get into a high of Mr. Brightside and then into Somebody Told Me, and like it just goes nowhere. It's just like it isn't like an album where it's like you have a certain variation of highs and lows where it's like, oh, you listen to like two songs that are a high and then like a couple lows and then you go high and then you go low. um but this album is just a low. It's most of it is just a low. It's basically very boring. Um it's like it isn't like a variation of like, oh, we're have a party and then it's like a dreary boring time and then you get some variation. It doesn't. It's very much like, hey, we gave you Mr. Brightside and Someone Told Me, and then we give you nothing else. It's just like a drag of an album. Um, and then the second, I guess the other part of the compliment sandwich, it has Mr. Brightside. Hi, Hen is a fan.
Fan.
Alright. So this album is really bad. Uh, I was just looking up the accolades while I was doing this. People are like, this is the what? Like somebody said this is like the 44th best album of like the entire 2000s. I mean, people vote as the best debut album of all time. Like, man, I don't know what these people are on or what, man. People are like, this won like 5 Grammys. I mean, I guess the Grammys are a
I don't
boring
think
organization
I don't think
generally.
it won any Grammys. Um,
Oh, didn't
I think
win.
it,
Well,
yeah, I think
oh,
that's
five
probably good for them.
nominations. Okay. Yeah,
That
no,
did
they
win.
they did good. Um, so this is pretty kind of basic 2000s rock. For me, there's a nostalgic feel, which honestly is kind of even, which really goes to show how bad this album really is that like even with this sound being nostalgic, I'm still like, man, this is just bad. Even nostalgia can't save this album. Um, there's some things like the drummer's doing a lot of tricks. He's doing things to evolve the song, doing hi hat things. Constantly, adding in. And I'm like, okay, that's good. He's adding in some ear candy, evolving it throughout. But good hi hat grooves doesn't fix bad songwriting. Um, I forgot that most of Somebody Told Me actually sucks. Like, the chorus is awesome. But I forgot that the rest of the song is, like, dreadful. The weird thing is this is something I should like. Like, I kind of hate that I don't like this. It should be right up my alley. Dark sound, heavy synth, really wide filling sound. This is something I should love. This is like if you made me a pepperoni pizza with all the ingredients I like, but it still just sucked. You know? Um, you know, I mean, sounds like all these things I've done, that was just not a good song. Like, at all. I don't know how, on YouTube Music, it like 142 million streams. I don't know how. I was just really bored by it. Also, it's like over 5 minutes. That could have been wrapped up in a neat 412. And Andy, your star had a really good verse, but the chorus was just really bad. And that kind of brings me on to kind of the point that I've been thinking about this entire time, was that there wasn't a single complete song on this record. They just kind of drone on. This album just fundamentally does not work. It has moments. Most songs have moments, but there is no one complete song. It feels like it kind of wants to be some weird prog record, changing feels and changing keys and different stuff throughout, but it's obviously not a prog record, and they sound like that. It's just bizarre. I've never really heard an album like this where it just like doesn't sound like finished songwriting. Which is, I mean, just so odd. And brings me to this point, which is that, unfortunately, Mr. Brightside, a song that I really do dislike, is actually, I think, inarguably the best song on this record, because it is a song. It's one complete experience as a song. So, it pains me to say that, but, I mean, it is undoubtedly the best song on the album, because it flows, it fits, it's like an actual song. I usually don't bring up stuff like this, but I was listening on YouTube Music, and right after a different song from this time period came on, and that was Island in the Sun by Weezer. Another weird kind of curiosity by an early 2000s, from the early 2000s, by an alternative indie band, obviously Weezer. It's a 90s band too. But I bring this up because that song is like the complete antithesis of the Killers record, because it's a song that has a goal, has a specific vibe, and it completely knocks it out of the park in every single aspect, which is something that no song on Hot Fuzz could do. No song on Hot Fuzz could do what Island in the Sun did. And that's just kind of the record. It's just not as good as Weezer.
Well, there's certainly a lot of bands we could say that about. Most of the stuff we've done on the album club. To be
100%. I would be that. I guess that's just how I decided to end.
Even their song, a song about LA, that was a really good song from that era of Weezer.
Well, I'll say you already know that I don't like Beverly Hills. I'll leave it at that, because I'm not here to talk about Weezer. I am here to talk about...
Can I have a quick response?
By Vicky.
Yeah, Matthew had a response.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I don't know if fan mentioned this, but I think basically the Killers are a singles band, and one band that kind of reminds me of is ABBA. I think ABBA is probably the greatest singles band of all time. but when it comes to being one of the great bands of all time, they have not that many good albums. But like it kind of, I was talking to Fan about this all the time, as we do, and he said that they were a singles band, that the Killers are a singles band, which makes total sense, especially listening to this because the first two sing. I think. Well, Mr. Brightside is the first single. I forgot what the second one. It may have been. Somebody told me. I don't remember, nor should I care. But this is like a very singles oriented band, and that's all I have to say.
Oh, well,
Yeah, 100%. I just want to agree that yes, we would talk about that, and he is 100% right. They are a singles band.
now I will say, just kind of off the record, I'm not going to draw on this anymore because this isn't really relevant, but I actually do like ABBA's albums. But once again, I'm not here to talk about ABBA or Weezer. I am here to talk about the Killers. Alright? Absolute Killers. Unfortunately, this album does not feature absolute killers. This album, well, I would say a lot of these songs I don't really remember all that well. Ones I do remember are Mr. Brightside. Sorry, I got tripped up there. Mr. Brightside, Smile Like You Mean It, Somebody Told Me, and Glamorous Indie Rock and Roll. As for those songs, Glamorous Indie Rock and Roll, yeah, kind of sucked. We already discussed that. So, oof. Somebody Told Me, I didn't like that one. The lyrics about you look like you have a boyfriend that looks like a girlfriend I had last week, or something. I don't know, that just, it was trying too hard to be clever. It was stupid. It was...
Last February.
Last February. Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly how it went, but it was trying too hard. It is February, actually, when we're filming this, so, maybe that's his girlfriend right now. I don't know. But it's, in my opinion, it's just too trying too hard, basically. Mr. Brightside, I don't hate it like Fan does, particularly, although Fan kind of backtracked on his opinion and did say he thought it was the best song on the album, but, still, it's just is. Like, it's not a song I really care for. Like, it's one that, like, luckily I've been mostly pretty immune to it's being overplayed. Like, yeah, I hear it a lot, but it's kind of like, it's not the type of song that really lives rent-free in my head. You know, those songs that are, like, distinctive and annoying, like, My Sharona, that can, like, stick in your head when you don't want it to. I guess sort of the best thing about Mr. Brightside is it really is just not that catchy, so it won't ever stick in my head long enough to become annoying. And so as such, it goes in one ear, out the other, and just kind of is, I guess, fine because of it. Smile Like You Mean It is a little too saccharine, but it's alright, I guess, in my book. That's the one I would say is at least kind of good on here. I'll disagree with Fan about Mr. Brightside being the best song on the album. I am going with Smile Like You Mean It. I thought that was the best song on the album. Not really a great song, but it was at least okay. Maybe good. Pretty saccharine, but like if it was one song on this album, it was like erase this album from existence, but leave one song, it would be Smile Like You Mean It. That would be the one I would keep. Right? But just generally this album, I found it pretty forgettable. And I think it really goes back to what I said in the Coldplay episode. A while back we did, it was Viva La Vida versus, if I remember right, it was Texas Flood by Stevie Ray Vaughan, which I don't want to bring up Texas Flood here particularly, but we did Viva La Vida by Coldplay. This sounds kind of similar to that, albeit I do think that album was better than this one. Because at least I feel like they were at least trying some things that were a bit more for backing, as opposed to this, well, all of the backings of all the songs felt like they were basically just copied from a recipe card. So, but still, there was, I think, some similarities in the sound of Coldplay and this. And you see this with several bands from this time, also Franz Ferdinand, even though I only really know really well one Franz Ferdinand song, which is Take Me Out, which of course is still the most famous song, but Eck also kind of sounds like this. This was kind of this trend, and I said this, I remember with the Coldplay episode. The singles here got this kind of voice that kind of sounded like a knockoff of Bono. It sounded very... I mean, they basically sounded drunk, And they sounded like, they had tried to do these really deep voices, but it came across as kind of buffoonish. It's kind of like the audio equivalent of Handsome Squidward in a way. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone but me, but it kind of that's how I feel about it. It's just like, I guess it's kind of like Morrissey in a way as well, but not quite as much. I usually think of it as being more kind of like an imitation of Bono from U2. Wherever Bono after his prime. I mean, you could argue Bono himself was guilty of kind of having this sound at this time period. And really, this is kind of like that. I mean, this kind of sounds like U2 after their prime. This kind of sounds like Coldplay. The singer on this, I think his name's Flowers or something. Brandon Flowers, yes. Doesn't sound all that different from Chris Martin, in my opinion. And I don't particularly like Chris Martin's voice. It's just kind of this... I don't know, I don't like the vocal style on this too much. It could be certainly, I think, saved by better songwriting and more inventive playing. The playing, the music here is competent. I mean, but it feels very... I don't know, it just doesn't feel very inspired. It just, as I said earlier, it sounds like it was copied off of a recipe card. And as for my comments about U2 earlier, since there was some debate that you watch a video can't see in chat about whether or not U2 is good, a debate we've had on this channel before, I generally like U2 up at least through Octung Baby. I thought they were really good, but there was certainly a point, especially by the point in the 2000s, where U2, even if they had still some good songs, they were definitely past their prime. Also, this doesn't even just sound like U2, this sounds like, this sounds like U2 past their prime, and then not only that, it sounds like a kind of a cheaper knockoff of U2 past their prime. So you have, two different dips of quality there. Two kind of drop-offs before you get to the sound the Killers or Coldplay have. And that just isn't it. There's nothing really tangible in this album for me to really latch onto. There's just, I don't know, even at its best, Smile Like You Mean It is still a pretty standard song, pretty saccharine, and it's not that textured. It's not a song you can really sink your teeth into over repeat listens. It's like, you might hear that once every 5 years and be like, oh, nice. And then not want to hear it again for the next 5 years. So, 5 years, maybe 10 years, who knows. And of course that's assuming you don't hear anything else by this band with this rather tired style in the meantime, and it's just nothing here I think you can really sink your teeth into. It is very much just kind of a standard product of the time. If you do want a time capsule of what this early 2000s sounded like, this is, I mean, I guess as good as anything. Fans said something to that effect about it having a nostalgic sound, but also failing despite that. Yeah, I just don't have much to say. I mean, there's just not really that much going for this album, other than maybe Smile Like You Mean It, and also the album cover. The album cover was actually pretty great, but other than that, just yeah. So basically, I'm not sure any of us need to waste more of our time. We've come to, I think, what seems like a consensus here. Is that correct, everyone? Should we move on to what album we liked better?
I don't even. We could probably just skip that part.
Maybe for once.
What it is.
Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go straight to it. Let's start with Ben.
Okay, Ben, which album do you like better?
I liked Madvillainy the best, as I think I made rather clear.
He liked Madvillainy the best. Matthew.
I'm here to talk about MF Doom, and so I did talk about MF Doom, and Madvillainy wins.
Fan.
You know, despite being a rather incomplete and disjointed individual, somehow I could not relate to the Killers record, so I'm going to go with MF Doom.
Well, maybe you just aren't a real killer. Maybe you're too nice.
No, he's a mad villain. That's why
he's a mad villain. Instead of a killer, he's a mad
villain, but I don't kill. I just throw trash out of the street.
All he does is he makes pro-drug PSAs and sick rhymes, and it's not the same as being a killer. As for which album I liked better, yeah, it's so obvious. It's Madvillainy. Madvillainy was really, really quite a good album. As I said, I listened to it 3 times, didn't get bored with it. Hot Fuss, I listened to, once, and it's I already know everything I'm going to say. It's some of these songs I'd heard before, I know, obviously, but, it's just yeah, the rest of the album's not really any better. It's just there, and it's it's no content. I was bored, already on, track 1 of it was Madvillainy. I've listened to it 3 times, and I'm, ready to go at it again. So, Madvillainy wins quite easily. Unanimously, actually, because Ben, Matthew, Fan, and me all voted for it. So, now we're moving on to who picked what album. Now, before I reveal who picked what, does anyone want to guess who picked what album?
I predicted. I'm gonna predict that Matthew picked both of them.
I say that Chris picked the Hot Ass album.
I just want to hear, because I've been getting conflicting reports from different people all week about who picked what. So I just want to know who picked the Killers album, and I'm gonna guess Matthew picked MF Doom.
Alright, well, Madvillainy was picked by Matthew. I don't think anyone was really surprised by this. Thank you, Matthew, for giving us something actually good to listen to. Alright.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Hot Fuss was picked by... Yes, interestingly enough, it was picked by me. That was my Madvillain moment of the week.
I knew somebody was gaslighting me. I just didn't know who.
I sincerely thought it was Matthew. I sincerely thought.
Why did you think it was me?
Because you're the 2000s guy usually.
Because I knew that you must have picked Madvillain.
Oh,
I thought it was you, Matthew. I thought it was you because you constantly tell me. I figured you picked it as soon as I said I hate Mr. Brightside, so you'd force me to listen to it.
It does seem like something you do more than something I would do.
This is quite possible, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't. The amount of acclaim this album gets, I don't understand. I love Mr. Brightside, and somebody told me, but this isn't the best debut album of all time.
That's probably why I picked it. I had, a friend of mine I know had been singing the praises of this album and this band, and I've also heard lots of other people say this album's good. It's, you know, as you said, it is really well liked. People say it's the best debut album of all time. So it's just like, I've heard some of these songs. They don't really stand out to me much. I also know Fan doesn't like Mr. Brightside. Let's just slap it on. You know, let's see, because like I'm very curious. Maybe the rest of the album is better, or maybe it has something in an album format that we don't get, and we just got here, and it was just like no.
Wait, before we end, let me read off some of the best debut albums of all time that could be better than Hot Fuzz by The Killers. Is It? Is This It by The Strokes? Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. Definitely Maybe by Oasis.
Oh,
License to Ill by Beastie Boys. Ken by Pearl Jam. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill. Illmatic by Nas. Enter the Wu-Tang by Wu-Tang Clan. A Certain Album by a Certain Person. And
That's what happened.
and Are You Experienced by the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Thanks.
Like all better bands than
Listen,
better solo
Also,
debut.
we could go on for hours listing debut albums. I mean, we got, you know, you didn't even list much classic rock other than Jimi Hendrix. You could go Led Zeppelin. You could go basically most, you know, classic rock bands, really. Like, even though I know
Boston pretty much put out a greatest hits record for the first album. I mean, every song on that first Boston record is known.
We're gonna get around to that album sometime here on the Album Club.
Yeah.
So yeah, that about wraps it up for another great episode, or well, a very hateful episode towards the Killers. So another hate episode.
They do kill people, so this is warranted.
They should be locked up for life. Let's be honest. They're the true Madvillains of this episode. So yeah, that about wraps it up here at the end of this episode. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Helps us out a lot. We all really do appreciate just sitting around here and chatting about music. We've suddenly had an episode today. And yeah, so see you next video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.